Hi, this is Debbie, and today I'm sharing how to ink blend Distress Oxides over a heat embossed background image that I created for my Doodling with Debbie series for Simon Says Stamp. When I first saw the new Round and Round background set, my first thought was how stunning it would look with each of the circles watercoloured so that the overlapping watercolours areas form new colours as the transparent layers combined. I'm filming this now just as the new release is coming out, and I see that Shari Carroll has made such a card and it looks stunning. You should check that card out. I've always loved Shari's designs, they're spot on. So I still wanted to use the Round and Round background set though, and I'm putting my thinking cap on as to how I wanted to use it. I remembered a combination of Distress Oxide colours that Christina Werner used the other day, and thought they would be fun blended over the circles if they were white heat embossed. So to get this card started, I placed a piece of 5.5 by 5.5 inch piece of hot pressed watercolour card in the MISTI, and I treated the card with an anti-static powder bag to prevent embossing powder sticking where I didn't want it to, and then stamped the image in clear embossing ink. Even though I'm using a hot pressed watercolour card for its smooth texture, I still stamped this image several times to get a good impression before sprinkling with white embossing powder and heat setting. Next, I pulled out the Distress Oxide colours I wanted to use: Squeezed Lemonade, Abandoned Coral, Tumbled Glass and Seedless Preserves. As I blend these colours over the card, they will combine to form new colours, and most of these colours will combine fine together. Red and yellow, for example, will make orange, but two colours I don't want to combine are purple and yellow, as these are complementary colours and combined they will go to a muddy colour. To blend the colours onto the card, I'm using a Picket Friends blending brush. I really like these brushes for smooth blending and tend to use the largest one from the set for all my colours. To keep it clean as I swap from one colour to another, I use a baby wipe and rub colour off the bristles with the wipe and then dry it off on a microfiber cloth. And that gets the bristles lovely and clean and soft and ready for ink blending. Starting out in real speed, and you can see how this brush and the creamy nature of the Distress Oxides are a perfect combination for smooth ink blending. If you've ever had trouble blending inks before, then please give this combination a go, as it makes the inks go on like butter. So I've speeded things up now, and I wish I was as speedy as this at times, certainly when doing boring things like housework. But I think when you see ink blending speeded up, it really shows the process of the inks combining and blending together. The Squeezed Lemonade combines with the Abandoned Coral to give a beautiful orange where they overlap. And as I move on to Tumbled Glass, my colour theory is ringing alarm bells for me again, because blue and orange are complementary colours, and I'd blended the orange area right next to the area I wanted to use the blue. To make sure these didn't combine to a muddy colour, I kept the area where they overlapped to a minimum before moving on to the Seedless Preserves. While I finish off blending the colours together, let's chat a moment about why I chose to use watercolour card rather than a simple white card such as Nina Solar White. Well, I find that the colours are slightly more muted on the creamy watercolour card, and that suits my preference. And also, I plan on using a fair amount of water with the ink blended background shortly, and the watercolour card will stand up to this. I finished the blending with an extra going over with the yellow and blue, as these colours have been slightly dominated by the stronger red and purple colours, and then I gently rubbed over the whole of the card with a microfiber cloth to remove any of the ink on the white embossed lines and bring them back to their bright white colour. Now I'm bringing in the water by spritzing the card with a mini mister filled with water. Distress Oxides are water reactive, and when they come into contact with water, they seem to come to life to me. The colours become more vibrant, and although the colours are well blended together anyway, this extra spritz of water helps to combine them more. I have a heat tool continuously moving over the piece to dry areas as I spritz more water, and I keep going with this process until I have a seamless blend of colours. I do like this vibrant, smooth blend of colours, but if you know me, I also love the texture you get from splatters, and so I started by splattering the card with a tube from the mini mister. I left the water droplets on the card for a moment to react with the Distress Oxides, and then used a paper towel to mop up the liquid and the inks that it draws with it to leave lighter highlight spots. I then pressed each of the colours of Distress Oxide onto my glass mat and combined with a little water on a brush, and then splattered the mixture over the different areas. As Distress Oxides are opaque, the splatters sit on the top of the background and still show up, even if, for example, you have yellow over a darker red area. I also splattered with a mixture of Perfect Pearls for added sparkle, and then finished off by putting a little white gouache on my mat and again adding a little water until the mixture was of a consistency to splatter, but still being thick enough to be opaque and leave white splatters over the card. I made sure the background was fully dry before using a rounded corner rectangles die to cut a card front from the panel. I think the rounded corners really go well with the circular design of the heat embossed background, and I love the blended colours and all that splatter over the top. So now with the background made, it's time to turn this into a card. This is the new Home Sweet Home set from Simon Stamp, and I thought the greetings were lovely with a combination of script and all caps fonts. I thought this sentiment would work really well with white heat embossing on a circle of vellum to continue the circle theme of the background. So I placed a piece of Simon Stamp vellum in the Mini Misty. It just so happens that this scrap of vellum I had was already cut into a circle, presumably from another project. But this circle is larger than I want, and I will die cut this with a smaller circle later on. I stamped the greeting in clear embossing ink and sprinkled with white embossing powder before heat setting. Then I aligned the smaller nested circle die around the greeting and ran it through my die cutting machine. My plan is that this circle is more or less the perfect size of one of the heat embossed circles on the background, and so I lined the vellum over that circle and then folded the excess onto the back of the card and secured with some washi tape. I've often been asked how to adhere vellum to a card, and there are various methods such as folding it around the card, sewing it in place, using a clip or a staple, and also as I'm going to do now, which is to hide adhesive behind the vellum. By placing small pieces of foam tape behind the white embossed greeting, I have a place to add adhesive that won't be visible from the front. I ended up adding 2 small pieces of foam tape behind the script words, which had thicker lines in order to hide the tape, and then folded the vellum back over the card front to secure. I added foam adhesive to the back of the panel and adhered it to a side folding A2 card, cut and scored from ivory card. I find the colour of ivory card tones better with the white embossing than a stark white. I love to add accents to finish a card off, and for this card I've picked a few colours from the Nuvo Crystal Drops range: Pink Orchid, Duck Egg Blue, Bubblegum Blush and Sugared Almond, as well as Nuvo Crystal Gems. I chose to concentrate the crystal drops in the areas where they coordinated with the Distress Oxide colours. So most of the Pink Orchid drops are over the Seedless Preserves area, the Bubblegum Blush over the Abandoned Coral, the Sugared Almond over the Squeezed Lemonade, and the Duck Egg Blue over the Tumbled Glass. I then finished off by adding in a few crystal gems of varying sizes for some added sparkle. I used a crystal katana tool to help me pick up the gems and then kept them in place with Gina K Connect glue. And that completes this fun Distress Oxide ink blended card over the white heat embossed round and round background set, with lots of droplets and gems to tie it all together. I'll leave links in the YouTube description below to the products that I've used today, as well as a link to the coordinating blog post over at limedoodledesign.com. I want to thank you for joining me today, and if you've enjoyed this tutorial, I'd be delighted if you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. Also, if you want to get notified when a new video is out, don't forget to hit the bell button next to the subscribe button too. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.